Perhaps nothing represents the community-minded patriotism of the U.S. home front in World War II better than the scrap drive. Enemy conquest cut off supplies of crucial raw materials such as tin and rubber, and the need for products made from these materials skyrocketed due to the war. There were several things you were supposed to collect for a scrap drive, but probably the most important was metal. Metal shortages were critical. Citizens scoured their homes, farms, and businesses for metal. Housewives donated pots and pans. Farmers turned in farm equipment. Many people removed bumpers and fenders from their car for the war effort. Communities melted down Civil War cannons and tore down wrought iron fences, sacrificing their history for their future. Although the Salvage for Victory program started in January of 1942 on the East Coast, it didn't really reach Port Huron until October, at least in an organized way where there was quotas assigned. On October 20th, 1942, this was a headline in the Times-Herald. Scrap drive starts Wednesday. And it started off with a bang. They were going to have a downtown parade, and then they would end with a rally in the Port Huron High School gym, which was on Broad Street, which is now McMorran. And the goal for the city was 500 tons of scrap. And we'll look into that more in a minute. Here's another distraction I had, this picture right here alongside this article. Fire-swept school building. This was a school that used to be on a beach in Westwater. And this is what the caption says. 2 pupils watching the smoldering ruins of the beach school at Westwater and Beach Roads in Port Huron Township. Charred ruins and chimney were all that was left after a fire of unknown origin Monday morning swept through the frame building, from which all of the 52 enrolled pupils escaped injury. Mrs. Lois Way and Mrs. Leona Bears, teachers in the school, were about to dismiss the pupils so that the teachers could attend a meeting when Mrs. Way noticed a fast-growing brown spot on a wall. Pupils were escorted outside before being told of the fire. The value of the building and contents was estimated at $7,500. I'm sure some of you remember that school. This was the front page the following day. Rally open scrap drive tonight. Then it has a photograph here, youngsters join in scrap drive. Youngsters were a very big part of the scrap drive. The Board of Education even let high school students off if they were involved in the scrap drive. And the Boy Scout troop was a big part of getting the junk back to the designated drop-off points. But here, the youngsters have a pony cart and a pony. It's hard to see in this photograph, but you can see part of it there. See the wheel of the cart and the horse. There's one more thing I want to show you on the front page here, and we go over to the left side. You see where it says, "Are we going to let Mike and the rest of the boys down?" Well, that story is just about a fellow by the name of Mike that left the Grand Trunk Station, and he told his family he'd be back right after training for a few days. And then the war broke out, and Mike never came back. But that's not what I want to show you. What I want to show you is above what that says. Let's get scrap happy. This was used many times in the Times-Herald. Now that's really a catchy phrase. Now here's the case where the Times-Herald used it for a contest, Be Scrap Happy. And this was for high school kids and for junior college kids. And the whole contest was about finding how many jalopies they could bring into scrap. And they would go out and talk to these different owners that had junk cars and see if they couldn't get them to donate them to the scrap effort. Now the winner got to go to Detroit and, well, go through some boring things like dinners and so forth, but something that might interest them was they get to go on top of the Penobscot building, which at the time in Detroit was the highest building. And then they also got to inspect either the Ford bomber plant at Willow Run or the tank arsenal. So that would have been kind of exciting for them, I think. Anyway, back to Scrap Happy. So I thought surely it must be a theme, a national theme that they got it from. But I checked all the posters, and the theme on all the posters is Salvage for Victory. Now you might be asking, Davis, why do you even care about it? Who cares where it came from? Well, that's the problem with historians. They're very curious people. And it's funny the things you find out when you're curious. I mean, was this some enterprising journalist at the Times Herald came with this? Because I like this phrase better than the national phrase. So I thought perhaps I got it from one of the patriotic films they showed in the theater, but I couldn't find it there. But you know what I did find in the theater? I found a cartoon, Daffy Duck. And you'll never guess what the title of that cartoon was. I thought it was pretty amazing that you could make a cartoon that went along with the national program. It could be a cartoon that was funny, but it could also be serious if you think about it. And I'm going to play you a few excerpts from this cartoon. If you want to look at the whole thing, it's on YouTube. But I thought it was amazing because I think it's a cartoon for the kids, but I also think it's a cartoon for the adults as well. Because inside the cartoon, there's a story that if we don't get as much scrap as possible, we could be defeated, and we want to win. In this clip here, it reminds us what kind of metals that we're looking for.
We're in to win, so let's begin to do the job with John. We're in to win, turn in your tin and listen to it drunk. To our nation's call, every rubber ball goes to conquer freedom's foe. Freedom's foe, freedom's a foe.
And here it reminds us who our enemy is.
Freedom's foe. We're in to win, our scrap is in, so to victory, let's go. And do the job with John. Past, past, hotel cast.
And in this next clip, you can see all the things that are laying around the house or the yard that would be valuable to the war effort.
Pails, nails, empty nails, fats, hats, rubber mats, missing legs, kitchen sinks, garbage cans, electric fans, rubber boots, bathing suits, reels, wheels, run-down heels, beds, springs, piston rings, metal shears, old 10 years. Tires, chains, water mains, skates, plates, furnace grates, pitching forks, rubber corks, sacks, racks, railroad tracks, clothes, hose, fiddle bows, plugs, lugs, bathroom rugs, cotter keys, housemaid knees, rubber bands, birdcage stands, metal snips, pillow slips, locks, socks, grandpa clocks. And that's why we're in to win.
And in this clip, it makes the leaders of our enemy look like idiots. And in this next clip, it shows the Founding Fathers. They all had battles that were hard, but as Americans, we never gave up.
Daffy, fame. Creak, 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 Uncle Dillingham duck. Did I cry spinach when I stood a duck on Plymouth Rock? Did I in Washington give up with Valley Forge in Hawk? Did Daniel Boone and me quack quits when Injun seized our scalp? Did John Paul Duck give up the ship or ever holler help? Hey, Daffy, Americans, don't give up. No, Daffy, Americans, don't give up. That's right.
And in this last clip, it shows that we will be victorious.
A dream. It was all a dream.
Next time you dream, include us out.
That's all, folks.
I thought you might enjoy looking at some of the photographs that were on the front page of the Times Herald concerning the scrap drive, and in some cases elsewhere in the newspaper. In that case, I just usually printed out the picture. In this photograph here, you see the dump truck dumping at the city dump on Water Street. And this was for tin cans. And they weren't doing a very good job. The mayor was a little upset because they didn't have near their quota on tin cans. Plus, they weren't turning them in properly. These tin cans looks like they've got the tops and bottoms, or at least one bottom or one top. They don't look like they're flattened. And the housewives were supposed to cut out the top and bottom and then flatten them with your foot and then turn it in. Just like this poster shows you. In this photograph, they're mostly collecting tires and rubber. 9 tons to scrap Japs. And the caption says, J.F. Wilson, Petroleum Industries Scrap Rubber Representative in St. Clair County, is shown inspecting one of the largest single loads of scrap since the nationwide 2-week campaign opened Monday. This load, containing about 9 tons of rubber, mainly worn-out tires, was collected by the Star Oil Company. And if you look at the very on top of the truck, you can see the Star Oil logo. So that would have been down near the river where all the oil tanks were. And once again, young people were a very important part of finding these old blown out tires and bald tires and bringing them to a distribution point. I thought this photograph was interesting. The caption on this one reads, as a reminder to passerbys that it is a patriotic duty of every American to gather together scrap metal for the war production program. Leroy Grayton, Pine Street, places the American flag atop the pile of precious scrap which stretches across the lawn in front of his house. Since the United States went to war, Mr. Grattan and a neighbor, Bert Jones, 11th Street, have unearthed thousands of pounds of scrap. Before he collected the pile shown above, Mr. Grattan had already filled 3 large trucks with scrap which he collected in months gone past. He is the air raid warden of his block. Leaders of the Big Scrap campaign point out that a pile like the one shown above will be a badge of honor at every home where it appears before the pickup Monday. In this photograph, we see that a new radiator heating system brings 14 tons of scrap. The caption reads, 140 pounds less than 14 tons of scrap cast iron being loaded on a U.S. Incorporated truck by members of the maintenance crew of Press Metals of America Incorporated plant for shipment to blast furnaces for making into war material. The scrap metal was an outmoded radiator system in the plant and was dismantled by the maintenance crew on their own time after the company donated the metal. The $228 which the men were paid for the metal will go to the Port Huron unit of the USO. All right, I want to show you one more local, and then I want to show you a couple from the surrounding area because Port Huron wasn't alone in this. At the top of this photo it says, an unsightly sight for Hitler and Hiroshima. This caption reads, the key to victory lies in this sprawling heap of scrap metal collected Monday from patriotic Port Huron residents in a citywide campaign. From a truck loaned by the American Wire Division of Electric Auto Light Company, youthful volunteer workers hurl pieces of scrap onto the 575-ton pile in J.S. Goldman Yard, Court Street. In the pile is everything from old bathroom fixtures to worn-out kiddie cars, from hairpins to rusty boilers, and it will all be used to help feed the mills that turn out the goods for America's fighting machine. Some 300 tons of scrap were collected Monday alone here. Okay, here's one that says Lakeport joins the scrap drive. The community of Lakeport joined in the recent scrap campaign to contribute the huge assortment of scrap piled in front of the Lakeport School. Schoolboys in the picture who aided in the campaign, and it goes on to name the names of the different boys. And in this one from KPAC, a junk heap yesterday, a paradise today. And this caption reads, just as surely as though they were carrying guns, the youngsters on this scrap pile are fighting America's war against the Axis. This is only part of the 135 tons of unused metal collected by grade and high school pupils in KPAC in a campaign in which they comb the countryside for miles around. They will use the money they get from sale of the scrap to buy war savings bonds. If there's one takeaway from these photos you've been looking at, is how important our young people were to this scrap drive and how valuable their contribution was. This concludes part 4 of our series. Join me in my next video and you'll see a couple photographs that I've never seen before of the Port Huron Pine Grove Pavilion that I found by accident. And something else I found by accident, something that was in Pine Grove Park that I never dreamt would be there. So join me then.